Do you think that this, the minority bid is also a bit overstated, given the fact that, that they have 40% of the population? It's not like, they're confined to 5-10% and facing the might or the persecution of the majority. And also that, that in educational institutions, also in the top post, you see Kuki representation. It's not like, that they are completely, denied of any such opportunity. How do you react to that, sir?
I'm very clear about this from the very beginning. Political representation in a democracy has to follow numbers, and this must be there. So I see some argument, some genuine, base in the argument that my friend Hanshing is putting out, that if cookies are, this much of population, it should be reflected in the political sort of, distribution of power. About reservations, it's a national decision. If you're a scheduled tribe, you do enjoy certain benefits, in employment and education. But I am serious about one thing, and I've seen this in my own state of Tripura. And in Tripura, though we Bengalis are a 70% majority, we did not go by the logic of majority. We decided to accept the fact that the tribals are indigenous people, they belong to the soil. When the kings of Tripura were good enough to give us shelter when our ancestors fled from East Bengal or East Pakistan due to persecution. And though the demography is decisively in our favors, we decided not to make a virtue out of numbers. So we agreed to 6 scheduled district councils under 6 schedule for the tribals. And this autonomy thing is not a bad thing, because autonomy, as in the Indian Constitution, is intended to build a sense of belonging, a sense of stake for the tribal people who have otherwise been left out, left behind in the process of development. All these tribal communities, because of geography, because of the remoteness of the places they inhabit, because of the difficulty of raising crops, which can easily be raised in the Imphal Valley, they have been left behind in the process of development. Now, if you grow ginger in the hills of Manipur, bordering Mizoram, and in Mizoram, why can't the central government and the state government get a ginger ale factory going there? Has anybody thought about this? And a ginger ale factory there, producing ginger ale, which is a health drink, can easily be marketed to the Assam Rifles. My good friend Shaukin Chauhan and his successor will welcome, local products. When I go to Assam Rifles camp, they always make a big issue. They give you local products, locally made liquor, locally made this, locally made that. So they can take this health drink into their canteens, and you have a captive market. छोटा छोटा चीज है भाई, इससे बहुत बड़ा चीज बन जाता है. You do these kind of investments there. You try to kickstart something. You have a G20 tourism meet in Kashmir. You are trying to bring investments there on a large scale, and it is perfect. Do the same thing with places like Manipur. This is also India. I told you this on the very first or second day of these programs that we have been in TV9. And by the way, these programs have made an impact, because yesterday my good friend Onam Sunil, my brother, you can say, Chief Information Commissioner, called me up and took the numbers of TV9 people. So TV9 is making an impact there, and I hope what we say goes down, and adds to the process of restoration of normalcy. What I will say here is very simple, is that if G20 can happen, every time, say in 2015, which was the anniversary, the 70th anniversary of the end of Second World War, Imphal Koima battles were legendary. They rate at the same level with the battles of Stalingrad or the battles of El Alamein. I made an humble proposal that Indian Army has capacity here, 10% hai. You set up large number of temporary accommodation with good sanitation and good drinking water, and encourage foreign tourists to come. because there are any amount of people both in Japan and in the Western countries whose ancestors fought in this God-forsaken place. From their point of view, this was a God-forsaken place. From Japan, it was so far for the Englishman. Even Barack Obama's grandfather fought here. Now, why I say this? You're talking of tourism summit, investment of tourism in Kashmir. My dear sir, this place, why can't you do nostalgia tourism every
Absolutely.
year? Bring, and you know what? These guys who will come here to witness a traditional battlefield. France and Germany were having a lot of problem, and Belgium too, due to the meltdown in European economy. They used 2015 to generate war tourism, as they put it, and there was about 30 to
Absolutely, Dada.
40%. तो
Absolutely.
ये सब आउट ऑफ द बॉक्स कोई नहीं सोचता है. प्रॉब्लम इज यू गेट sermons from Delhi, you get all kinds of funny, arithmetic, that इतना percentage है, majority है, minority. यार, majority or minority, everybody needs food first, everybody needs livelihood, everybody needs land. Address the land and livelihood issue dispassionately. behave
Absolutely.
as administrate
I'll
behave as administrators.
absolutely.
And lastly, let me make one final point here, because my throat, courtesy TV9, is very sore. And therefore, and therefore, Brajesh, let me make with the last bit of gas that I have, to back my throat up. Let me say this: Manipur, Rami was right, is the gateway to Southeast Asia. But can you have this place working as your gateway if this place is so badly disturbed? We here need a permanent settlement. We need to solve the Naga problem. 25 years of Naga, negotiations, no result. We need to sort out the Kuki problem with the SOU groups, come to some kind of a final settlement. These settlements are political. We need to also, and Rami is right, the living space problem in the Imphal Valley is serious. Yes, I agree with Hanching. This debate, carrying capacity debate, I've seen in Andamans. Can the Andamans take more people? I said no. And there were people who said, यार इसको free port बना दो, इसको Hong Kong बना दो. अरे भैया, आप उसको हांगकांग बनाओगे तो जो जरवा है वो खत्म हो जाएगा, because they can't take the pressure of population.
True.
They have medical vulnerability.
True.
They are already, so you know what, this carrying capacity thing is a useful point that Hanching brings to the debate. But the point is, this can change if there are new crops for the hills, if there are new options for the hills, intelligently thought out, options. Hills will produce more, hills will provide better livelihood, and people like Hanching will have less to complain that यहाँ कुछ भी नहीं होता है. On the
Absolutely.
other hand, the problem in Manipur, the Imphal Valley is serious, the living space, and the answer to that is also development. Otherwise, more and more Meitei boys and girls, and not only Meiteis, Kukis, Nagas. I went to a restaurant called 20 Feet High in Bangalore. 6 Kukis, 4 Nagas, all waiters. I knew they are from my region. I asked them, and they said, we are from Manipur, sir. And then I asked them, where from Manipur? Then they said, I'm Kuki, I'm Naga. But now possibly you ask them who they are, and they will say, I'm Kuki, I'm Naga. That's what changes. But here,
Absolutely, Dada.
finally here, एक चीज मैं आपको बताता हूँ. This talk about, Modi ji asking his ministers to go there every month, Modi ji making 54 visits. These are all symbols. Symbols are important. But we
Yes.
need substance. We need more understanding, and we need some definitive development project to kickstart the local economy in a way that will provide sustainable livelihood both for the Meiteis and for the Nagas and the Kukis.
The thing is, sir, that, apart from illegal migrant, one of the other word which we keep on listening to is the poppy cultivation and the government's crackdown on poppy cultivation. And, the picture which is presented, sir, is that the reason why this problem is happening is because the government is relentlessly having a crackdown on the poppy cultivation. Do you think that it is once again they're trying to push a community or a tribal community into one particular trade and then say that the reason why they're up in arm is because a crackdown is done on the poppy trade?
The problem about being a soldier is that, I can't say something and mean the other. So let me be very clear. You just have to look at the displacement of the population. You have to look at how the population is actually located in Manipur to understand who controls what. The road to Manipur from More, is controlled by the Kukis. There is poppy cultivation, but that is not the excuse for this violence. This violence, the issue was, to my mind, and as a former soldier, as a soldier who's fought for the integrity of Manipur and of Nagaland and of the Northeast, I can only say is that these are unrelated issues. The violence that took place in the valley and in the hills of Churachandpur and the adjacent hills is unrelated to what the government says about the crackdown on poppy culture. There should be a crackdown on poppy culture, but it has not been a crackdown. The immigrants, the migrants, the Myanmar migrants, it's incorrectly stated, and I can have no other words for this. One has to understand the processes. That of course there is poppy culture, but that is also supported by the people of the government. That is also supported by people who are earning money from it.
True,
but these riots have not come from that. These riots have come from three issues. One is that there has been a feeling within a certain part of the valley community that they are losing out on what they feel are the rewards for them being the dominant community in Manipur. And if they could also get the status of the scheduled tribes, that would be so much better, because that helps them get government jobs, which they feel they were missing out on. The second part was exactly as my good friend Mr. Bhaumik said. You went anywhere out of the Northeast, the young girls and boys working there, and if you ask them where are you from, they would say Manipur, and they would not say they were Kukis, or they would not say they were Meiteis or Tangkhus. They had started integrating themselves. Now they had started asking questions that if there is going to be peace, and I have been a part of the peace process in 2019 when I was in Nagaland. I was also part of the discussion groups that took place along with the Myanmar officials in Imphal to make Imphal the hub for people traveling to and fro from Myanmar. And at that time, things were looking that Imphal would really be actually the land of gold for the Northeast. Actually, the place from which all the trade could go. Now, why has this violence taken place and why has it suddenly broken up? Is because a part of a certain dominant community feels that they have missed out and they want more. And that's the problem. So, poppy culture, there has been, I would say, a 5% crackdown, but that has nothing to do with the present violence. I must be very clear about this.
That was very clear and very articulate, Lieutenant General Shaukin Chauhan. I would go to Rami. Rami, you heard what Lieutenant General Shaukin Chauhan has to say about what is going on in the mind of the dominant community, where they fear that they are losing out on the government job as well as on the land itself. And you also heard Mr. Hangsheng saying that, that 90% of the 90% land which is occupied by the Kuki community, which is on the hills, is inhabitable. It takes 3 to 4 days to reach there, and it's just an illusion of sorts. How do you respond to those?
Rajesh, I agree to a certain extent with both my panelists. There should be no reason that the hill districts should not be as developed as Imphal. There should not be any reason that Imphal should not be decentralized, and there should be the kind of facilities that Imphal enjoys should be in the hill districts. This was one of the reasons that Manipur was under so much of focus, that there was so much development happening, keeping Manipur in centrality of affairs, whether it was the Jiribam Imphal railroad, whether it was direct flights that for the first time were uh, allowed to Imphal, whether it was the talks of putting a consulate on the More, or at least a sort of visa office for easier movement in More for people to come in from Myanmar and other Southeast Asian countries. Manipur was to be the route for the next Buddhist circuit. And having said that, somebody made a comment about the G20 happening in Kashmir. I myself have given lectures in two C20s in the Northeast. So it's not that the Northeast is not in anybody's consciousness. On the contrary, Northeast is possibly for the first time in the mainstream consciousness of the country in the biggest way it ever has been. So, I think again, I will reiterate my point that this responsibility lies on civil society to understand that perceptions matter. And perceptions matter in terms of how people will react, what sort of tourism is going to come in, what sort of development is going to happen in the state, and, what sort of government dialogue is going to happen. So if the perception of the state is again that it is conflict ridden, I don't think we can expect for great tourism to happen, unfortunately, no matter what development initiatives are taken, no matter how much connectivity is given to Manipur. You've already demanded for an ILP. The ILP is created for whatever reasons. I'm not going to go into the reasons of why it was demanded and what it has protected. But, it increases one more step for somebody to enter the state. What good is that doing? We've seen by the recent elections that the Northeast is moving towards a national narrative. The results of the elections in Nagaland or Assam, much more than it had ever before. If that is the case, then what is the reason for this kind of conflict? Instead, if development was an issue and that's what they've been, that's been the bone of contention, then the protest should have been about
इसके बाद में
development
जाऊंगा
and
सर
demanding development in district areas. So, my limited point here is that we have to perception manage. Civil society has to perception manage. And I don't think, this is going to fare well unfortunately, for a state that I love very much, wherein, it is going to look like a conflict-ridden state. People are going to be hesitant to go in. And this is going to have a heavy impact on all our development initiatives.